my takeaway project, I decided to do a recipe on the Interpretive Journey, also known as a recipe for brownies. But I'm going to show you guys the ingredients and then we'll get started. Okay, so here we have one bag of what the text meant to the original audience. We have 2/3 cup of differences between biblical audience and us. We have 1/4 cup of theological principle in the text. And we have 2 round objects, also known as eggs, which are going to be our theological principle fitting with the Bible. And lastly, we have 2 1/4 cups of living it out. Okay, so step 1 of our directions is to carefully read and observe the text and add 1 bag of what the text meant to the original audience into our mixing bowl. However, this is also known as grasping the text in their town, and we need to pay close attention to the grammar and historical literary context of what the text meant to the original audience. So we're going to dump 1 bag into our mixing bowl. I have a bad feeling about that. Probably going to need to get scissors. Well, all I found was a knife, so we're going to use that. We shall take our 1 bag of what the text meant to the original audience and dump it into our mixing bowl, like so. It is very important that we are very specific and we do not generalize or try to develop our theological principle yet, which will come. Okay, so we have our what the text meant to the original audience in our bowl. Now we're going on to step 2, and it says add 2/3 cups of the significant differences between the biblical audience and us into the mixing bowl. This is also known as measuring the width of the river to cross. So it says we need 2/3 cup. And so there's step 2. As you can see, we have a lot of stuff in there so far. Okay, so now we are on to step 3. Step 3, we are going to add 1/4 cup of the theological principle in the text, also known as crossing the principalizing bridge. However, I'm going to have a guest baker come in and dump our theological principle in the text into our mixture of what the text meant to the original audience and the difference between biblical audience and us. Thank you very much, Taylor.
You're welcome.
This is an important step, however, because we need to be very careful to not look for similarities. However, the principle should be reflected in the text and should be timeless and relevant. And it's also important that we don't try to make up a meaning. However, we look for the meaning that is intended to us through the text from the author. So now we have this nice mixture, and now we're going to move on to step number 4. We are now on step 4, and this calls for 2 round objects, also known as eggs, but we're going to call them the theological principle fitting with the Bible. And so we're going to add these 2 round objects into our mixture. So I'm going to do then we're going to stir all of our ingredients that are in this mixing bowl and pour the mixture into the theological principle fitting with the Bible baking pan, which is also known as our consulting the biblical map. So this is our nice little baking pan. I had a brownie pan, but my roommates put it underneath the cold water when it was piping hot and it exploded. Yeah. So we also need to make sure that our ingredients fit into this baking pan nicely, and that we put the baking pan into the oven afterwards. So I'm going to stir. Watch if you'd like. Now we're going to pour it into our baking pan, otherwise known as consulting the biblical map. So as you can see, I got all of our mixture of all of our steps into their baking pan, and now we're going to put it into the oven where it will cook or bake. And it's important to know that not everyone's embarking journey or interpretive journey is going to take the same amount of time as these brownies or this interpretive journey of brownie making. It's not all going to be the same time. Some may be less, some may be more. But if yours is different, that's okay. And not everyone is supposed to be the exact same. And it's your journey. And so now we're just going to wait. Who knows how long it's going to take for this journey to be done, or maybe it never does end. So we're just going to wait. So we are now on step 5, and we're going to take our mixture or our interpretive journey brownie recipe out of the oven, which we will then let it cool. This is our living it out stage, or grasping the text in our town. And as you're doing this, be sure to think about, be sure to think about how each individual piece, or otherwise known as theological principle, how we can live them out. I'm having trouble grabbing that, it's really hot. How we can live these out. And so here we have our brownies, and they're very hot, and so we're going to let them cool for a while. And the final step is step 6, and there's only 5 steps in the interpretive journey of making a brownie. However, I'm adding a 6th step, and that is to enjoy. And remember that each of you will grasp and apply the same theological principle in slightly different ways depending on your current life situation and where you are in your relationship with God. And so here's the final product.